hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, where I break down the most controversial subjects, the most contested topics, the most engaging debates going on in the world today. And tonight is no different. We got a lot to talk about. Last night I said we weren't going to be here for a long time. We were here a little bit longer than I thought, but today we're going to be efficient. Why? Not because anything is wrong, but because I've decided that I'm going to sleep every day. Every single day, I'm going to sleep. Every single day, I'm going to get a good night's sleep. Every single day, I'm going to eat. And part of doing that is managing time better. So we're going to get to it pretty soon. I wanted to shout out everybody who's been coming into the classroom. Again, it's been an incredible month. It's been an incredible week. The last 7, even last 10 days have been amazing in terms of people showing up, people viewing the videos, people sharing the videos. And I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who's been doing that. We're going to get started. But before we do, I need every night school classmate to hit the like button on this video. You can leave a comment, your name, where you're watching from. We want people to know where people are from, because this is indeed a global classroom. And then I want you to share the video, share it with your friends, share it with a group chat, share it with the social media community. If you're over watching on Twitter right now, welcome. We love having you on Twitter, but we love it even more if you come over to the YouTubes right now for lots of reasons. Anyway, you can invite people, you can hang out, but if you want to leave a comment, you got to be a subscriber. So make sure you drop in that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything except kindness. That's right, y'all. You can leave comments, you can be a subscriber, but we don't take uncivility. Is it uncivility or incivility? We don't. Be civil, God darn it. You can clown me, you can criticize me, you can mock me, you can tell me how wrong I am. I don't care. You can do that to other people too, but when you comment, we don't use dehumanizing language. We don't use offensive language. We're trying to create a healthy discourse here. So that's what we're trying to do. Anyway, you can listen to me or you can not. But if you don't, you'll get a warning. Once you get that warning, that's all I can do. If you get another warning, you get muted. If you get muted, you can't leave any comments. Third strike, you get banned. I don't want to ban nobody. I want y'all to be here. I want y'all to kick it. I want y'all to have a great conversation. That's what it's about. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for hanging out. Lots of stuff to talk about, man. Donald Trump, he really hit the ground running with all of the craziness. You saw the executive orders. You saw the undoing of things like withdrawing from the WHO. You saw him, the World Health Organization. You saw him withdraw from the climate accords, Paris Accords. He is making it very clear what he's about and what he's not about. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Sexxy Red and that photo that was going around of her and Martin Luther King Jr. I got jokes for the mayor of Philadelphia, who had some difficulty spelling Philadelphia, or our team anyway. And I got a little bit more on Donald Trump and what's going on there, specifically his engagement with the National Prayer Service today. It was weird, but we got something else today as well. We got one of our own. We got Bullet the Bunny right here in the building, and she's going to talk to us about what's been going on in Gaza. And of course, you know, she has worked very closely with Abdul Wahab Abu Warda, one of the doctors from Gaza, and we're going to talk to her about what's going on. And that's incredibly important. So let's get to all of it. Gaza is such an interesting moment right now. I heard Donald Trump today talk about Gaza, and he was asked, you know, what was going on, and he gave a Donald Trump answer. But beyond that, he talked about how Gaza had wonderful land, good weather. He was talking about it like a developer. He was talking about it like somebody who didn't care about a culture or a people. I mean, it's settler colonial logic. He was talking about it like, look, I don't know how it's going to end up, but we can make some money off this thing. And so that kind of logic, that kind of speech, got me even more concerned than I've already been about Donald Trump, got me even more concerned than I've already been about so much. I'm going to play the clip for you from Donald Trump. And I want you to understand why this is such a problematic thing to say, problematic thing to do. And this clip is courtesy of Fox News. Shout out to everybody except Fox News. Let's see. Let me pull this up for y'all. I wasn't going to show it, but it's in my spirit that y'all need to see this. Check this out. Don't mind that person on the bottom of the screen. It didn't happen.
Mr. President, that you can keep the ceasefire in Gaza and conclude the 3 phases of this deal.
I'm not confident. That's not our war, it's their war, but I'm not confident, but I think they're very weakened on the other side.
Do you support the 2 states?
Gaza, boy, I looked at a picture of Gaza. Gaza is like a massive demolition site. That place it's really got to be rebuilt in a different way.
Do you plan to help rebuilding Gaza?
I might. Gaza is interesting. It's a phenomenal location. On the sea, best weather. Everything's good. It's like some beautiful things could be done with it, but it's very interesting. But some fantastic things could be done with Gaza.
How do you see the future in governance for Gaza?
Well, it depends. I can't imagine you could have, well, you certainly can't have the people that were there. Most of them are dead.
Then are you, Mr. President, that you can keep the ceasefire?
That is a bizarre way to talk about a land that's just been devastated by a genocide. He sounded like a real estate agent. When you look at an old house, oh, the bones are good. Oh, we could do some things here. We could put a pool here. Hearing him talk like that was really disturbing. He couldn't remember the name of Hamas, by the way. He was like, those people. He couldn't remember the name of it. But what he was basically saying is that it needs a new leadership model, but he's indifferent to it. It's not our war. Now, for some people, him saying it's not our war is a good thing. And I understand it. Because if it's not your war, then you ain't got to fund it. If it's not your war, then you ain't got to send weapons. If it's not your war, you don't have to use your veto power in the UN Security Council. I mean, if it's not your war, then you don't have to double down on some of the most atrocious public policies that we've seen in a long time. So look, it's not my war thing. And look, I'm not trying to get the US involved in more stuff. I get the impulse to say that that's good. And in a lot of ways it is. But I don't like the fact that when he says the other side, he's clearly saying us and Israel are here. Palestine's over there. Because he is going to continue to fund Israel. He is going to continue to back Israel. Him and Netanyahu are like a bromance. They're a buddy comedy, a bad one. And if that's what they're doing, then I'm worried that he's going to contribute to creating the conditions where Gaza is exploited, underdeveloped, where more and more people are pushed out into the Sinai, where more and more people are not allowed to rebuild. I mean, Gaza, 90% of people who live in Gaza are displaced. 90%. So much of the built environment of Gaza is destroyed. So much of the housing is destroyed, the civil infrastructure, the schools, etc. So in light of that, it is incredibly difficult to hear Donald Trump talk that way. But there's a lot more I could say about that. I don't want to talk anymore. I want to bring on Bullet Zebani, one of our OGs in the classroom, one of the OGs of night school, one of the OGs of the MLH channel. But she's not just a legend in our channel. She has done incredibly important work with Gaza. And anyway, we'll talk about the project. We'll talk about what's been going on. Nicole Hawkins, also known as Bullet the Bunny, our very own. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So talk to me. We are 2 days beyond or 3 days now, really, beyond the start of the ceasefire. What do you make of this ceasefire? How did we get here?
How did we get here? Well, what I make of this ceasefire is, and yes, I am a woman. I know everyone always is very shocked that I'm actually, anyway. So yes, I am a woman. I make of this to be about political theater. It looks to me, they released like 90 some odd prisoners that were being held by the occupation. And then they went into the West Bank and they picked up like exactly as many, if not more. And the West Bank has been burning. I find this ceasefire, this is my political opinion, to be theater for the new administration. And I was very disappointed. I mean, it's frustrating because, like, fuck Joe Biden. But wow, I looked at a picture of Gaza and it looks, it's just destroyed. Did he look at a picture, one whole picture, you think? And anyway, so I make of the ceasefire, the relief that is being felt in Gaza really cannot be overstated. There had to be some kind of stop in just the endless aggression that has been in the last 4 months, has just been to levels that people really can't understand. I work with Dr. Abdel Wahab Abouarda, who is one of the few surgeons who's been left north of the Wadi Gaza line. And as you've mentioned many times on night school, Gaza has been bifurcated. And nothing has moved south of Wadi Gaza, which is basically just like a stream that goes through the middle of Gaza. And everything north of that is the most dramatic pictures that you're seeing on Instagram. People returning to their homes in Beit Lahia, and there's just bones left of their relatives. So what do I make of the ceasefire? I make of it as to be political theater. I do not think that any of these white men care. I think they're going to keep doing what they're going to keep doing. And I'm here to say that we aren't going to allow that to happen.
I think that's important to say that, and also to sort of think about what the needs are. I mean, one of the things that we've been complaining about, protesting, advocating for, is humanitarian aid. The U.S. has been complicit in, not holding Israel accountable for blocking humanitarian aid in all the ways. The U.S. said that they would. 30 days goes by and say, I give them another 30 days. I mean, they've basically just continued to punt on holding Israel accountable. But since the ceasefire, 900 trucks of aid have entered just today, right? Just in the last few hours. We're seeing more and more aid get to people. We're seeing areas that had been restricted from food and medicine getting them. What are you hearing about relief efforts?
So one of the things that I think a lot of people haven't understood, especially about the last, honestly, in the last year. So, this has been going on for about 18 months. And in the last year, what's happened is a lot of the bigger organizations, like PCRF and UNRWA and World Central Kitchen, etc., World Food Program, all these places have had to move out of areas that are called red zones because, for lots of reasons, they can't, putting their aid workers in that kind of a danger. And then, there's a whole economy around this. And so there are whole neighborhoods that have not been reached in like 8 months.
Wow.
And so we're moving into this area and we have been begging. I mean, there was in October, a total of 30 trucks came into the strip. And I think very few of them made it to the north. I got a message from Dr. Eduardo this morning our time, and I was almost in tears because he just said, I ate chicken today. And that'll be the first time he's eaten meat in over a year.
My God.
And in the north, you know, there has been a siege, a prolonged siege of over 100 days on the north of Gaza. And what that has, you know, and it was already terrible, and anything that moved past a certain line south was getting, you know, violently attacked. But then what happened is nothing could come in, and people were just kind of left with whatever was left. So most people are eating cereals, so rice, old rice, you know, trying to sift out the bugs out of some flour. At one point during all this, we bought a 5-kilo bag of flour for $480 US. And I'm sorry, please.
No, it's just when I hear those kinds of stories, and again, these aren't rare stories. This is the norm. In fact, if anything, the norm is people having less than that.
100%.
You know, I talk to people who are eating chicken feed.
Exactly. Or literally trying to keep. So again, I've spoken with people who were trying to keep their donkey alive because it was the only the only way they were able to make money to get food was to give people donkey cart rides or move goods and services. They're trying to keep their donkey alive, so they buy this food for the donkey, and the whole family eats the donkey feed. And we're talking about a population, especially in the north of Gaza. Like Gaza City is like beautiful, stunning place with all this, you know, a lot of like very modern like design and people, lots of art, beautiful minarets, and people are used to living in, you know, a certain way, and that has been completely obliterated. And what you said earlier about, you know, Dr. Abuvarda is very lucky. He's very lucky. You know, we've been able to keep him with eSIMs. Most people can't even communicate with the outside world. So that's one. You know, an eSIM can, for like a week or two, can cost like $60-70 US. And that's just to keep people connected. And he's been at a hospital where there's been like he moves around to different hospitals. And so that's a place where a lot of journalists will gather. And so there's stronger internet, this type of thing. And it's really, he's very lucky. And I'm considering this man lucky, and he's lost 30 members of his immediate family. And so we have a long way to go. There is so much to do to rebuild Gaza, and that's barely even in the foresight of people, because immediately aggression starts in the West Bank. And immediately, you know, my theory that I cannot back up is that we traded the West Bank and Pegasus software on all our phones for Gaza to stop getting bombed for a little while.
I mean, when you talk about the West Bank and the danger there in particular, it's important to think about. Even as a ceasefire comes in, the West Bank is pretty much fair game in the minds of the settlers. We see it happening all the time. There was a military raid. 10 Palestinians got killed today in the West Bank. There was and many more got injured. There was a military raid, an Israeli military raid in Jenin, which of course is a city in the occupied West Bank. Also, the UN ambassador, Donald Trump's UN ambassador. If you don't know, Elise Stefanik is her name. You may have seen her at the confirmation hearings for, or whatever they weren't confirmation hearings. They were hearings. They were witch hunts, really, against those the president of Harvard, president of Penn, president of MIT. Anyway, Elise Stefanik said that
she sucks. Is that what she said? Because that's what she should have said.
That would have been great. I could have lived with that. Instead, she said, if confirmed, I stand ready to implement President Trump's mandate from the American people to deliver America first, peace through strength, national security leadership on the world stage. Now, that doesn't seem that out of step with what other people say. But then she was asked if she shared the view of far-right Israeli finance minister, at least for now, Bezalel Smotrich, as well as Itamar Ben-Gvir, who I believe is the national security minister. They say that Israel has a, quote, biblical right to the entire West Bank. A biblical right to the entire West Bank. She said, yeah. She said, yeah. So if you believe that the West Bank, or what they call Judea and Samaria, because, you know, again, they're extremists and crazy people. If you believe that that's Israel's because the Bible says so, and you already got settler raids and you already have all these things happening, you know, it's hard to believe, in my estimation, that the West Bank isn't just as, if not more vulnerable than Gaza, especially when Donald Trump says from the beginning, hey, I'm kind of okay with this.
So this is interesting because I've actually wanted to ask you this question about between, you know, because I first of all, I think it's really important. And I know that the viewership here is like scattered around the world and not everybody has different levels of being cued in. You know, Jenin is 40 kilometers from Jordan, the Jordanian border.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that people like, you know, when you look, when Dr. Hill is talking about greater Israel and this broader project, you see how there's pushing these borders out. I think that, you know, I think it's really important to remember that the West Bank has been being violently attacked the entire time. I remember this time last year watching bulldozers just tear through streets for no reason.
Right.
Just destroy streets so that ambulances cannot get to hospitals and so that people cannot get to work. There's never been a cessation of the violence in the West Bank. I think that you'll know, and maybe your viewers do not, there is, because of the, what do you call it? You know, there isn't a contiguous Palestine. So we've got these two chunks, right? And there is animosity that has grown between these two groups of Palestinian people because of what the occupation has done. And so there has been tension between people who are from the West Bank and people who are from Gaza about attention, about, you know, where is our focus when there's violence in the West Bank, you know, and but I think the reality is, Mark, and that Gaza has, it is not possible to describe the condition of Gaza in words. It's just not. I don't know how. I'm not the person. I really do wish. I wish we had been able to have Dr. Abdulwahid here so he could describe it in words, or try to. But you know, for instance, for months now, people have just been walking in North Gaza amongst people screaming from underneath the rubble, unable to be reached.
Wow.
And now people are finally returning. They're paying crazy amounts of money to take their belongings with them back to their home in Bet Lahia in Gaza City, and it is nothing. It's not just nothing. It's not just a bomb structure. It's now a literal pile of things, and that is on top of all the human beings who you are related to. You know, it's a grim picture. So, do I think that the West Bank is in imminent danger? Do I think that all Palestinians are in danger right now? Yes, absolutely. I think that is equal parts. But I mean, what's your take on that? Like, what do you think?
I think Donald Trump doesn't care about the West Bank, which makes it a conversation that wouldn't have happened anywhere else. I mean, even from George H.W. Bush forward, settlement expansion has been something that has been at least acknowledged by the U.S. as a problem, even if they ultimately don't do anything. Let me just say one thing. In the meantime, we got breaking news here. Israeli forces, maybe less than an hour ago, stormed Aida refugee camp. And it's important that people know that Aida is a refugee camp that's located not far from Bethlehem. And they also went into Tulkarem, the city. They also went to El Ain refugee camp, which is west of Nablus, earlier this morning. 10 people got killed. We already mentioned in Jenin. I'm telling you all this just to say that the West Bank really is on high alert, and it's being, you know, just viciously attacked. But ultimately, I don't think that the West Bank, the settlements are going to continue to expand, but the international community, I think, is very clear on saying this is wrong. I don't think Donald Trump has the authority or the power, sort of even informally, to create a condition where Palestinians are kicked out of the West Bank. I think the resistance would be too high. I think the international support would be too much. But they are very, 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 very vulnerable to all kinds of expansion. Israel's made it clear that, yeah, all this is ours. They made it very, very clear. initially it was a struggle to take Jerusalem. There was a time when it was like, all right, Palestinians, leave East Jerusalem. Just go. Just we'll give you money. We'll build. We'll invest. Ramallah will be the place. That'll be where the casinos are. That'll be where the hotels are. That's the administrative capital. We can go out to Al-Bira and put some other stuff. But basically, like, we want you to make Ramallah home so that you don't do East Jerusalem. But now it's like, yeah, they still want them to have Ramallah, but not much else. Not much else. And so I don't take that for granted. I also think, but yeah, there's lots of thoughts on it. But I think that's something we have to be very, very vigilant about, because while this huge disaster was happening in Gaza, the West Bank, as you pointed out, was very much being attacked. It's very much being, settler raids, home demolitions, all things that Palestinians can't afford to rebuild. This is super important. Also today, just as an FYI to everybody, the UN Human Rights Office, which is in the West Bank, of course, says that freedom of movement for Palestinians has been, quote, massively restricted as illegal settlements expand. So again, the international community is paying careful attention, and so should we. I got to run mainly because I'm old and tired, but what do you see? How can we support you? How can we support Dr. Abu Warda?
Yeah. So, well, if it's okay, I mean, for a lot of people have been following along with his story because Mark hosted us about a year ago, or I don't know, 8 months ago, something like that. And then he's also appeared on Upfront with Mark. But Dr. Abu Warda is a 31-year-old surgeon. He lives in Gaza City. He is the head of his household of 20 members, and he on December 9th of 2023, his home and clinic was bombed, and he lost 30 members of his family overnight and his home. At the beginning of the siege on North Gaza, the UNRWA school that they had been sheltering in was completely annihilated, and so we are still working to find a place that has walls to house the rest of his family. He has been staying for the last, I want to say maybe 75 days. He's actually been separated from his family, just sort of living on a gurney in the hospital. You can help us by, number one, going to Instagram and following Dr._Abdel Wahab on Instagram. If that's too hard to spell, you just go to Instagram and you look up Bullet the Bunny, and he's all over my page, and follow along with him. We do have a GoFundMe link, but things are getting very hairy here in the United States, and so we may close that link and move to a different country for a lot of different reasons. I'm not sure what to expect. A lot of us in the mutual aid space are trying to prepare for what comes next. We know what has been threatened of us, and I think most everyone understands the dangers that we're in, but it's more about like not wanting to transfer that danger on to people in Gaza. So yeah, you can support me by, you can support this effort by just going to this GoFundMe, sharing it with your community, and amplifying all Palestinians that you see on social media, interacting with them, and continuing to represent for a free and liberated Palestine.
Absolutely.
And before I go, because I really just have to, yesterday, two things happened on the stream, and I was wondering if you'd give me a couple of seconds just to chat with you about it.
Sure.
Okay, great. Okay, so one is, I think that a lot of the Hustle crew, myself included, were kind of flabbergasted. We were like, oh no, is Dr. Marc Lamont Hill giving Elon Musk a pass for straight throwing consecutive Heil Hitlers in front of the presidential seal on a national stage right after a president was inaugurated? And so I was just curious if, like, was that just like Marc Lamont Hill's real sick and now he's on field? I mean, what was happening? Help me.
I gotta be honest with you, and y'all might not believe me. I swear I'm not copping a plea. I don't remember what I said because I was so sleepy yesterday. By the time I got to the end of the show, I literally like got out of this chair and passed out. I don't know what I said. Did I say I can tell you what I think.
You gave him the benefit of the doubt. You were like, I don't think that's what's happening, but it is, and or let me rephrase it. What I heard, what we were hearing, a lot of folks were hearing, was that it was like, it was very Mika Brzezinski.
Gotcha.
And so, and like, you're our scion. When a Nazi sympathizer rolls up at the inauguration, I respectfully disagree. I think he knows exactly what he was doing. I don't know if he did it because he wants us all to like put swastikas and or gold stars on our arms. But I do think that if it's just him being a troll, it's maybe even worse. You know what I mean? That someone is just that powerful. That's like Marvel villain level stuff to me. And unquestionably, like you'll see all over, like, put that up next to anyone doing the Roman salute. And
wow. I gotta say, so I'll say a couple things. I watched it yesterday. I watched it with you guys. And my thought was he was taking his heart, sending it out. I don't have any particular faith in Elon Musk. I don't trust Elon Musk, and I don't put it past him that he would do that. I just didn't think he would do it on the first day in office. Like, it was more like, if there's a doubt, I'm going to lean toward he probably wouldn't do this to mess it up for Trump. He probably wouldn't do this because it's just such a crazy thing to do, like on literally your first day at work. You know what I mean? But I'm watching it now. And I watched it earlier today, and I thought about it some more because I got some tweets about it. And I was thinking, what did I say last night that got people thinking I'm being too generous? And I'm watching, and forgive me to everyone who's offended by this or who finds this troublesome. I have to show it to be able to talk about it. Yeah, it's a Nazi salute. I just can't say it any other way. Now that you know what it is, the heart part looks like a heart. But the way he hails that hand out, there's just no reason to do that if you're not doing Nazi shit.
Well, and he follows it with, thank you, because of you, the future of civilization is saved.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Is Hitler in the room? Has he come back from the dead? What is going on here? I mean, yeah.
So I will say, and I don't know exactly what I said.
Fingers too, Mark. Those are some very tight fingers. Look at his little fingers. Look at those nubby little billionaire fingers. Ugh.
See, that's the part of it is I don't know what Nazi salutes look like because I'm not one, and that's not my world. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt and said, look, it could
wait. Are you implying that I do know? Because that I'm offended.
No. They would not have you. You'd be kicked out of the first meeting.
Oh yeah, no, they don't want me there.
You need to be in the group chat.
They aren't sending me to do the undercover. Let's get the Nazis. I assure you.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and I'll turn it off because I don't want people to think I'm being like this. Is having looked at a few of these now and seeing these, it's a Nazi salute. I mean, I don't see how it's not now. I honestly, I thought people were being hyperbolic. You know what it is? My general instinct is to presume that people are being hyperbolic and that people are reading too much into things, right? My general instinct is to assume that it's not what people are whispering it is, because typically it's not. Like, typically it's the person doesn't stand up and do things that are pro-Nazi. The person usually doesn't stand on a presidential inauguration stage or something similar and send dog whistles to the crazies. But there's an arrogance to Elon Musk and to Trump and all these people that at this point, they're like, you know what? Fuck it. We can say what we want. We can do what we want. Who gonna check us? And so watching that,
not the ADL, not the ADL. You know what? They're too busy throwing college students in jail, but not the ADL. No. We're doxing college students who wear keffiyehs. That's way more important. We're sending strong letters to Marc Lamont Hill's employer.
Yo, I mean, I know I mentioned this last night. When I look at the ADL's message, right, which is right here, an awkward gesture, the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, wow, you could have gave that to me. You could have gave that to a whole lot of people. But, they're bought and sold. They're not the ADL is it's not an advocacy organization. It's not a human rights organization. It's not a civil rights organization. They are a lobby group for Israel, and they're a voice for Israel, and they smear people, and they lie, and they misrepresent things. And there's a way that, as is true with a lot of Trump's administration, how can I put it? They'd rather have someone who's pro-Israel, even if they're an anti-Semite, than someone who's critical of Israel and is not one. So it's no surprise that they are supporting Elon Musk in this, that they're riding out with him. It kind of makes sense. But what I'll say is I can't give him the benefit of the doubt. People deserve the benefit of the doubt, but there's just no doubt here anymore. When I look at it, I'm like, there's no doubt to give the benefit of. This is bullshit. This is a Nazi salute, and shame on him. And he won't do anything, and he won't be held accountable, and no one's going to say anything, but they should. They absolutely should. So
I mean, how do you hold Lex Luthor accountable?
Right. I mean, there's ways.
Take away a spaceship? Who does that? You know what I mean?
That's fair. That's fair. You're 100% right, and that's why I will retract my commentary. If whatever I said, they gave him the benefit of the doubt and the grace, no more. I'm out of grace. I'm done.
We love it.
I'm done.
We love it. We love it.
Look, thank you for hanging out. Actually, why don't you hang out with me for a couple more stories since you're here anyway?
Let's do it.
And I'll stay awake.
Yeah, that's great.
Because I'm over here like.
While you're transitioning to the next story, I saw a question come through on the chat here where someone was asking about addressing the trope that Hamas steals all the aid that comes into Gaza. And I'll take 10 seconds just to
please take your time.
Yeah. So one of the things that first of all, Hamas doesn't need to steal the aid. They're doing just fine in their tunnels. So that's number one. Number two is that there are groups of people who have been empowered by the occupation, not by Hamas, by the occupation, with weapons and with free reign over certain corridors that you send aid through, where there's not tons of rubble, where the trucks can actually drive, right? And so that's not what's happening. What's happening is the occupation is really fueling people who are hungry and really have no other choice. The other thing I'll remind everyone is not to patronize Gazans. Just there were douchebags who lived in Gaza on October 6th. I guess what I'm saying is there are always going to be people who try to capitalize on an incredibly terrible situation. And those people have been empowered by the occupation, by Israel, not by Hamas. And, I just think that's a really important thing. And I really just I appreciate the question.
That is an amazing answer to an important question, and I want to thank you for that. That's super dope. That you did that. I'm so tired of hearing that too. Oh, it's Hamas is stealing all this. Like, knock it off. People don't actually understand, and so breaking that down is important. There's a story I want to cover today, y'all. And I don't know if you all saw this, but it's sort of cool to talk about. Where is it? Where is, you know what?
TK, I think you're right. I think Elon Musk is just wanting to be center of attention. I think he loved how he looked when he was jumping up and down on that stage next to Trump. And this is a vanity project. I think you're exactly right, TK.
But see, that's the reason why I didn't assume it was a Nazi salute. I thought he was just doing what.
But doesn't that make it worse, though, Mark? That someone, I mean, again, I guess in that scenario, you're saying, I think he did it because he wants the attention, but he knows what he did to get the attention. Do you know what I'm saying? This isn't about I was just gesturing wildly because, I've gestured wildly my entire life. Not one single time is anyone ever going to get a photo of me looking like I'm giving a Nazi salute. And I was thinking to myself, Mark's probably going, oh man, if TMZ was waiting for me outside an airport and they caught me hailing a cab and took a photo, I want people giving me the benefit of the doubt. And that's
not how I think about things, right?
And look, that makes sense. And that's what makes you a good human. But we're talking about Lex Luthor here. So, no.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. All right. So, Donald Trump today went to the National Prayer Service. Did y'all see this? Donald Trump went to the National Prayer Service. And I only know this because of his response to it. So basically what happened was Donald Trump was walking through the White House, and someone said to him, what did you think about the National Prayer Service? If you don't know the National Prayer Service, when you become president, part of the inaugural proceedings are to go through the like a prayer service, basically. And you go, you sit. It's like going to church. You know, not a lot of people want to do it, but
it's like watching a bunch of people who've never been to church pretend to go to church. That's even better. So anyway, let me put this banner up so Princess doesn't murder me. So today, newly inaugurated President Donald Trump attended the National Prayer Service. Now, normally this is something that people don't know about, people don't care about. It's a pro forma thing where you go, you show up, you sit for the service, and you leave. And it probably would have gone unnoticed, except that Donald Trump, while there, or after he left there, I should say, gave a really strange commentary about it. Watch this. Just watch this.
Mr. President, what did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the
What did you think of the service?
What did you think? Did you find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it? I did think it was a good service. No. Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They could do much better.
Now,
Thank you, press.
because he is a supervillain, it didn't shock me that he would say they could have done much better at the prayer service. That shit is wild, right? Like, I didn't even know something you could say.
There probably weren't enough gold toilets. It was a problem.
My man was like, he said he wasn't very fun and exciting, was it? The exact quote was from C-SPAN, not too exciting, was it? I didn't think it was a good service. No, they can do much better. And so I was like, okay, even for Donald Trump, that's a lot, right? Like, that's a lot. But then I figured out, so that got me digging, because again, I didn't care. But then I did some digging. And I found out why Donald Trump was not so happy. Well, turns out the homily or the sermon by Bishop Marianne Edgar Budd got Donald Trump, it appears, a little, how can I put it, frustrado. You know, he wasn't very happy with what they said. Check this out.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President.
And you got to watch the Donald while this is
Millions have
happening.
put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God.
It's questionable.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people
Look at everybody behind him.
Oh, yeah.
who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families.
Look at JD Vance. He already looked at his
I was
left
going to say his eyeliner's starting to run.
And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals.
Look at
They
your face.
He's like,
may not be citizens
Snooze.
or have the proper documentation. But the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals.
Look at his son behind him.
They pay taxes and are
he's
good
like, there are
neighbors.
poor people? What?
They are faithful
Right.
members of our churches and mosques,
Oh, God.
synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger. For we were all once strangers in this land.
Woo.
Boring if you're
May
Trump.
God grant us the strength and courage
Right.
to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love,
Snooze.
and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world. Amen.
Well,
Good for the bishop. I mean,
look at their faces. Look at the look they gave each other. Now he's talking shit. Terrible. Worst. This is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Did you hear this poor? Did you hear what she
Right.
was saying?
So I want y'all, now that you heard the what Donald Trump was responding to, again, he leaves the sermon, and again, here's what he said.
Mr. President, what did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the
What did you think of the service?
What did you think? Did you like it? Did you find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it? I did think it was a good service. So thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They could do much better.
They could
Thank you,
do
press.
much
Inside,
better.
inside. Thank
You
you.
know what, Mark? Have you seen? There is a young girl on TikTok who does Trump quotes, and she acts like she's like a 12-year-old girl, and she's like, but she does them all like, oh my God, it's just that's everything I hear from it. It could have been much better because I wasn't happy, and I don't want to sit in this boring church.
It's a disaster.
Talk about whores.
It's amazing, right? First of all, shout out to the bishop for, I think, giving I thought a beautiful message. I mean, if you're going to do this religion thing, if you're going to do God talk, this is how you do it, right? You talk about justice, you talk about love, you talk about care, you talk about welcoming the stranger, you talk about mercy. And to watch them roll their eyes and clown and wink, and I mean,
That Trump seems much more natural to me than the one that showed up with a Bible outside the White House at the Black Lives Matter protest. You know what I'm saying? That seems like his exact relationship to Jesus Christ.
Oh, for sure. I also like Cece's comment here. They had to sit there and eat it. That's the other thing. Donald Trump's not used to being held accountable. He's not used to being checked. He had to sit there and hear somebody talk to him about the immigrant, talk to somebody about LGBTQIA, hear somebody talk to him about working class people. And he couldn't do anything but just sit there with no recourse. Good for him. He needs more of that.
Yeah, 100%. If we have to sit captive audience watching, Tubby McBillionaire throw up his arms, then yeah, I would like Donald Trump to sit through as many sermons about the stranger and about immigrants and about the people who make his country go round. I would love that. That would make me happy, if for no other reason than spite and pettiness.
Hey, I'm here for both of those. It's also, I want to say, powerful that the bishop did that. It's easy to talk that shit. I mean, I come here on night school and talk about everybody. But when you got the person in front of you, you got the most powerful person in the world right there, and you're actually saying, yo, like, here's the issues. That is a very courageous thing. And again, she wasn't trying to be confrontational. She was trying to just get.
That is what you hear in a sermon. Right. Those are the teachings of, and I am a Christian, but I wouldn't say I'm the representative here. But I do want to say that's what I hear when I sit in church. Those are the types of teachings that are referential to the book, that is, closely related to Jesus Christ. Like that sounds like what I'm supposed to hear. But right. I would imagine that's not a common occurrence in Donald Trump's life, to have to sit and think about others that aren't him, which is why it's comical to watch him parade himself around with those millionaire pastors and stuff, and pretend that they all like thumbs up him because they have a private plane too, and hopefully they can plane swap or whatever weird stuff those rich people do. I don't know, but it's just gross, incredibly gross.
But again, shout out to Bishop Marianne there for holding it down. We appreciate you. We appreciate the work you did speaking the truth to power. That is what the prophetic tradition is all about. I gotta go to another story. This is another one that, how can I put it? It struck me. So this was going around all over the internet, and I don't know if y'all saw it, but it was Sexy Red slow dancing with Martin Luther King. Now, she didn't create the image, but she posted it on her Twitter feed. And of course, Sexy Red has a gajillion followers. So when Sexy Red posts this, all kinds of stuff happens. It was posted for Martin Luther King Day. And there were so many things about this video that, I mean, this clip that I didn't like. It's weird. You know, Martin Luther King, if he were alive, would be in his 90s. He'd be like 95 or something like that, right? Sexy Red is in her 20s. So it's like I wouldn't make a AI video of like Rosa Parks sitting on my lap. You know what I mean?
No, not Rosa Parks sitting on your lap.
Yeah, unsee
Somebody make that. Where are you, internet? You must make it.
But it's like, look at what does this even mean?
Who do you? I don't know. I will say that to me, this like perfectly represents AI art.
Yes, that's true.
Confusing and done by the computers.
Yes. It's mad weird, but it's also like every year for Martin Luther King's birthday, they got to put his face on like a club promo. It'll be like a strip club, like it's MLK night, you know, and they have a picture of him with like chains. You know what I mean? It's weird, and it happens so much that I'm starting to. It's a thing, and I don't get what people are getting at. Why him? Like no one does that to Malcolm X, thank God. And I don't want them to do it to him either. But there's something
Why do you
about
think that is? What do you think the difference is?
I think that King has been so sanitized that they make it like a kind of irreverent thing. Like I mean, look at this one. Like it's absurd, right? It's absurd, and it's not like there's just one of them. Right? It's not like, oh, this is an outlier. Look at this one. It's like there's something about this that people like doing, and I don't understand it. I'll tell you one thing. I know who absolutely did not like it. That would be Bernice King, the Reverend Bernice King, the daughter of Martin Luther King Jr. She was not a fan of said clip, said video, I should say. So, and by the way, you talk about snitch tagging, because I usually hate snitch tagging. I think like if I ain't tag somebody, it's because I don't want them tagged. But some snitch tagging was due today. Some snitch tagging was necessary. They tagged Bernice King. They tagged her and said, "Look what the internet is doing to your daddy." And I gotta say, I ain't mad at it. I wasn't mad at it this time. And Bernice King, to her credit, posted this. Again, she knew how to get in this, you know, in the right moral kind of tone. She said, "This is intentionally distasteful, dishonoring, deplorable, and disrespectful to my family and my father, who is not here to respond himself." This is my favorite part, because he was assassinated for working for your civil and human rights and to end war and poverty. I mean, you talk about a guilt trip.
I mean, how's she gonna show her face? Like,
Yeah.
somebody's grandma's gonna smack her upside the head.
Yo, dead ass, right? Like, yo, that's just the way it's like, you're disrespecting my father. He can't speak for himself because he was assassinated working to get you free. Like, the fuck can you say to that?
That is a mic drop. You can't really.
You can't say nothing, and you shouldn't have to. So the reason says this post is unavailable under there is because Sexy Red did something I think that's honorable. She took it down. She did delete it. And she wrote here, you ain't wrong. Never meant to disrespect your family. My apologies. Just reposting something I saw that I thought was innocent. Two things, well, three things. One, I hate celebrity grammar. Two, how could you think that this was innocent? What's innocent about this? It looks weird and creepy.
God, the more you put it up, the more it creeps me out even more. Because it's like, did he pick her up for the dance? Like, is this like her dad? Is it like
right
dating?
They got explaining to do. And then third, like, why not just say
AI? Did they say Sexy Red dancing with Martin Luther King? Is that what they told the AI to do? And that's what it spit out? I'm so curious about what they actually put in.
Right. Like, what's the input to get that output? That's the question.
But good for her. That's a great example to set for not doubling down on, I'm looking at you, Nelly, and not doubling down on your mistakes,
Right. Right. And I wish you would have just said you're right as opposed to you ain't wrong. I hate that. But you know what? She said my apologies, and she said she explained the context, and she just reposted it. I'm not mad at her. I was mad at her when she did it. I was like, yo, come on, stop disrespecting Dr. King. Stop disrespecting her.
Hey, I have a question for you. How can people who want to continue to reclaim the legacy of Dr. King away from this sanitized, marketable MLK on a cup thing?
I think part of it is reclaiming the revolutionary or radical, at least, legacy of King, right? So don't do a day of service. King Day of service is crazy. Do a King Day of radical action. We have to remind people that he was a radical and he was in the radical tradition. Go get arrested on MLK Day. Go plan an action on MLK Day. Don't go give soup to people. You can give soup out on every other day of the year, but like on this day, make it radical action. I think we have to read King and read King properly. Don't just listen to the I Have a Dream speech, but listen to the other speeches and listen to the I Have a Dream speech in this proper context to understand that was a radical message. I think we have to teach differently. We have to teach the different King. If you're a preacher, what was King preaching from? He was preaching from liberation theology. He wasn't preaching from prosperity gospel, right? He was preaching from the James Cone perspective. He was preaching from the perspective of, God operates in defense of and in the service of the poor and the vulnerable, right? That God is for the oppressed. And beginning from that premise, King wasn't some biblical literalist. King had a different vision. To not let people write King into these ways. I'm sorry, I just got an update. My wife just sent me an update. She wrote a note. Bernice King wrote a whole note to Sexxy Red on Instagram, and it says, "Thank you for your apology, which I sincerely accept. Please know that it was not my intention that you be denigrated. I value you as a human being. I hope you understand my concerns about the image. I know that my father has become a bit of a caricature," we're just talking about this, "to the world, and that his image is often used with no regard to his family, his sacrificial work, or to the tragic, unjust way in which he died, a state-sanctioned assassination, excuse me. Unfortunately, I regularly challenge the disregard. I earnestly wish that people would imagine what it would feel like to see their deceased murdered father repurposed for party flyers, unjust legislation, etc. All the best to you, young lady." That's beautiful. It almost made me want to cry. It's also interesting that she put these things together. I thought it was really powerful. To see their deceased murdered father repurposed for party flyers and unjust legislation. Right. So this idea that it's not just that you make him look crazy by putting him on this party flyer for a strip club, but you also make him look crazy when you use him to fight racial, to fight for, racial injustice, to fight for Zionism, to fight for shutting down history. This is really sad. And I can see why it would be heartbreaking for the daughter of Martin King, but also just remember, like, her father was this is a real person with a real father, and the father was murdered, fighting for all of us. And to mock him and to mock our history is shameful. And so I thought it was a beautiful message that Bernice gave. And she's a strong, wonderful sister, and I have a great appreciation and admiration for her, particularly how she has herself grown and developed, and also I have grace and mercy for Sexxy Red. I mean, I got kids almost her age, you know, so I understand what it means to do dumb shit, or to just be kind of part of dumb shit, and you know what I mean. So anyway,
do you think that it was important to sanitize Dr. King more than it was important to sanitize Malcolm X? Like, when you think about, you know, I mean, I think this community is pretty clued in, you know, about like what these revolutionaries were basically hunted down by our government. And so I'm curious if you think that Dr. King's like message or appeal was going to be in some way more like viral, if you will, to lack of a better way to put it. Like, why did we need to sanitize him so much? Whites, I mean.
I think because King got laws changed. King was transformative in so many ways, and he had the hearts and minds of people. And so, you know, if you have a king in 68 who is listened to and admired, how do you continue to fight Vietnam, right? How do you continue to not have a poor people's, how do you not expand the poor people's movement and poor people's campaign? How do you not, you know, fight for racial justice, not just in terms of sort of 64 and 65 public accommodations and civil rights, voting rights act, but saying, okay, what's the next step and how can King help, right? You start thinking about workers' rights, you know, you start thinking about what's happening across the border. I think King had the power to transform American consciousness. And I think that terrified the US government. I think it absolutely terrified the US government. And even the assassination of King happens as he is transforming. I mean, just since we're talking about Gaza, I mean, think about King's transformation on the question of Israel. Think about his critique of the Israeli government. Think about how he has grown and become, you know, even more sort of sophisticated conceptually and theoretically. They have to kill him, and after they kill him, they then have to defang him. They have to make him a multicultural action figure. They have to make him somebody who every white person loved and every black person marched with, right? They can't make him unpopular. It's part of the movement. And then with Malcolm X, I think they had a similar situation with Malcolm X. I just think that first of all, Malcolm's reach wasn't the same as King at that moment, but among the grassroots and among the black radical tradition, or just the internationalist tradition, or just, you know, all those different areas, they framed Malcolm differently. They domesticated him in an interesting way too. I mean, by the time you get to the movie, in you know, it was, I guess, now 32 years ago. I know, crazy, right?
Wow, that just blew my mind.
I know.
Sorry. Anyway,
wild. Again, wild. They made Malcolm somebody who was transformed by the presence of white people, right? That he was a bad Muslim, the wrong kind of Muslim, that he was an obscurantist, etc., etc., etc. And then suddenly he goes to Mecca and sees white Muslims, and his whole world changed, right? It's not only historically inaccurate, it's conceptually simplistic, right? But it makes Malcolm seem like, you know, he was finally coming home to be more like Martin. they're not thinking about what the OA, the Organization of African American Unity, was doing. They're not thinking about even what Muslim Mosque Incorporated was doing. Shout out to the late great Sekou Odinga, who was a part of both organizations. He tragically passed away a few months ago. A dear friend, may he rest in peace. They don't think about him saying, "Hey, I'm going to take the U.S. to the international bodies for their abuses against Black people." They're not thinking about him sort of conjuring and invoking the tradition of the Bandung Conference, and thinking about a non-aligned movement, and thinking about what it means for Black and brown people to come together across these boards. They don't want that Malcolm X. And so by the end, the Malcolm X we get is a Malcolm X with a little rough around the edges, but ultimately he wasn't calling for a revolution. And when you listen to Message to the Grassroots, that's exactly what he was asking for. He said, y'all trying to integrate, y'all trying to sit at use white people's toilets. Like, what is a revolution? It's about bloodshed. It's about land. And he breaks it down over and over and over again. So anyway, all that to say, I think it was important for the U.S. government to do both, to sort of manage both of them. And they killed both of them for the same reasons. But I think also with King, there was a direct, concrete ask that was coming that was going to be harder and harder to say no to if they didn't get him in order. And so they got him in order.
Well, and to your point about, I recently reread the autobiography of Malcolm X and this past summer, and it wasn't that he was like transformed by seeing white Muslims. It was just like he had never been with a white person. He comments about how remarkable it is to be with a white person who didn't hate him. Like, that was what he was talking about. He never said like, "Oh, these white people transformed me into this like more palatable version of myself. I'm coming over home to America to do it." Not at all. He was like, "I have never in my life experienced a time when I didn't just automatically know your hatred emanating out." And he was shocked. It was surprising to him. You know what I mean? He didn't say it washes you clean.
Right, exactly. But by the time you Disneyfy his story, it can become that. And that's not Spike Lee who did that. It's other people who try to tell Malcolm's story in that way. And the thing is, Malcolm, he was in Palestine in 59. This wasn't his first time in the Middle East. It wasn't his first time. There were white Muslims when he traveled before. Elijah Muhammad made Umrah that year. So he was in Mecca. And Elijah Muhammad was. I'm saying that to say the story doesn't even jive historically. Like, Malcolm knew these things. And I think you're right. For Malcolm, it wasn't Malcolm. The idea also is that Malcolm repudiated the Nation of Islam teaching around white people being the devil, right? That he no longer accepted Muslim lesson number 2, or from the 1 to 10. Let's question number 2, which is who is the devil? And the answer is the devil is the Caucasian white man, right? The devil is Caucasian. The devil is the Caucasian white man, or the devil is the Caucasian white man, or Yaqub's grafted devil, the skunk of the planet Earth, or the nation teachings. And there came a moment where Malcolm did say that he no longer believed in the story of how white people were created, and that he no longer believed white people to be the devil at the ontological level, i.e., that there is a real devil, somewhere in that there is a devil that then creates more devils, right? But he understood that white people as an idea, whiteness as a construct, was still the devil. He was just saying it's not that you're born a devil, that white people make white babies and those babies are born devils, right? No, the world shapes us, but white supremacy is something else.
100%.
And so to your point, the white people he saw in Mecca, according to him, were not tainted by white supremacy in the same way, right? That they weren't invested in whiteness as an idea or as a construct in the same way. And so it's because he no longer believed that white people, again, were biologically the devil. So then it becomes, well, what makes white people act like this? And it's like in the United States, whiteness does, white supremacy does. All around the world it does. So, but he's saying there's something about this place, and there's something about Islam that makes you divest yourself of those things. Now, I don't necessarily completely agree with Baba Malcolm, because I think there's a way that even in the context of Islam, there's racism, not baked into the scripture, but baked into the practice. Right? When you go to a mosque and they don't trust that you're Muslim because you don't look that way, it's because they have a certain idea of, you know, who's what. When you see skin bleaching cream in the West Bank, like I have many times, it's like, oh, there's a reason why people want to bleach their skin, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So white supremacy goes everywhere, but there is something about whiteness in the context of America that is troublesome. And I think Malcolm understands that and got at that. But again, by the time you get it to the Malcolm story now, it's kind of like, yeah, Malcolm was an angry guy who was violent, and then he figured it out. You know, he came home to be more like Martin, and that's the point. And it's like, no, that's not the point, nor is it the truth. So I'm very happy when people talk about Malcolm in different ways and really speak to Malcolm's beauty and character and etc. Anyway, so I'll tell you one thing though, I don't want to see him on no party flyer.
I mean, I think, yeah, it seems like we haven't reached that point yet, which is, thank God. You know what I mean? I don't know, you know, that was so interesting, by the way, to like hear you like just kind of go off on that, because it is such an interesting concept that even Malcolm X was also sanitized. Of course he was sanitized for our consumption, as so many revolutionary people are. And, you know, it's a very fascinating, you know, especially just coming off of King Day, you know, I think it's a very interesting thing to think about what our governments want us to see, what like our schools want us to see, what they want us to learn, and what they don't want us to learn and see. And I saw an interesting thing recently about how, you know, one of the tragedies of banning TikTok will be that like so many people don't read at the same level that we did, like we do, maybe even just, I'm talking about from like a historical, you know, Gen Z doesn't read at the same level. And so TikTok is this short form educational place where you can still consume this information from maybe the people who have read it. But that to say, it just reminds me that it's still important to go back and like, you know, read the long form, like just sit with it, marinate with it. That's what I love about what you do, you know, sit with the knowledge, sit with the information, like, you know, you don't have to have it fed to you. Not to say anything wrong about TikTok. I'm not saying that.
I don't know much about TikTok, but I did read today that people talk about sort of TikTok is their Google. That they're literally looking there for information, like from like as a baseline foundation, not like, oh, I know about this thing, let me just see some videos about it, but like I want to know what this thing is, so I'm going to look at it. That's crazy to me. But again,
yes, Bullet the Bunny is a middle-aged white woman. I love that people are surprised by that. I love that. That makes me so happy.
I'm glad people got to watch you today.
You don't have children either. That is also true.
All appreciate it, yo. Bullet, I'm going to run because I need to sleep. And once again, I said it's going to be a fast show. And look at it, it's an hour and 12 minutes in.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I enjoyed this so much. And
you got to do this on a regular, yo. It's too much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We should pull a thief in as well. I think that would be a real fun.
I would love that. Let's make that happen.
Chew the fat. Chew the fat, for sure. All
right. Well, I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, fam.
Family, that was Bullet the Bunny. Thank you for watching the show tonight. I appreciate y'all. That's all I can say. I mean, Bullet the Bunny being on the show is just a marker of just sort of how dope this community is, how organically we developed and emerged, and how important the work is that everyone out here is doing. So just thank you. All right, y'all, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you're so inclined, hit the join button. Become a monthly paid subscriber to the channel. It helps us do what we do by giving us the financial stability necessary. So just think about it. But if you can't make that commitment, go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle and make a one-time payment. That's right. You can drop $1. We won't be upset. We'll be excited. You can drop $1 million. We won't be upset. We will be excited. Any amount between $1 and $1 million, we will take because we need the support. This is how this company keeps going. This is how we fight corporate media. It's how we let them know they're not the only game in town. We need your support. So please, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle, drop something, whether it's $1 or $1 million. We're grateful. But if everybody watching right now, would have dropped $10, just $10 for the, just $10, we'd be able to make all of our financial goals. So just think about it, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.